Have you ever wondered how a society could be made of many, many different groups, yet still be incredibly unified? It sounds like a paradox, right? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating and, yeah, complex perspective on social harmony, and we're drawing it straight from a celebrated spiritual text. So, let's get into it.
So where are we getting all this from? Our guide for this journey is Daivathin Korel, which means the voice of God. It's a collection of the teachings and discourses from Kanchi Mahaperiyava, a deeply revered spiritual leader. We're going to be unpacking his specific line of reasoning on this whole principle of unity and diversity, just as he presents it in his teachings.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the core vision. Then, we'll look at a really powerful analogy that talks about strength through division. After that, we'll see how that idea applies to society, explore what the text calls the ultimate unifying force, and finally, look at the theory for why this whole structure was so resilient.
All right, let's jump right in with the foundational concept. You see, the text doesn't just use unity and diversity as some catchy slogan. No, it presents it as a deliberate, almost architectural principle for building a society.
Now, the central idea that's being discussed is something called Varna Dharma. As the source itself describes it, this was a framework for organizing society based on hereditary roles, and the stated goal, the whole point, was to create stability for the entire society and a sense of contentment for the individual.
I know that might sound a little backwards to us today. Strength from division? But to explain the logic, the text uses a very clear, very powerful analogy to argue that when it's done right, division actually creates resilience, not weakness.
Which brings us right to the big question. How on earth can separating things possibly make the whole thing stronger? Well, the discourse tackles this question head-on, with a simple, physical example that's actually pretty brilliant.
So here's the core principle. Think about it. One single, massive, loosely held group is actually pretty unstable. You know, if one part starts to come loose, the whole structure can just fall apart. But if you have many, smaller, tightly knit groups, and then you combine them, you end up with a whole that's way more resilient and stable.
And this is where the famous bundle of sticks analogy comes in. It illustrates this perfectly. Picture this. You're trying to tie a huge pile of loose sticks together all at once. The text says it's going to be loose, it's going to be unstable. You pull one stick out and the whole thing gets slack. But what if you did it differently? What if you first made small, tight bundles, where each one is strong on its own, and then you combine those little bundles into one big one? The result is an incredibly firm, super resilient structure. Even if one of those small bundles loosens up a bit, all the others stay secure.
Okay, that makes sense for sticks, but how does this apply to people, to a society? Well, the text takes this exact same logic, this bundle of sticks idea, and applies it directly to the way society is organized. Each community, based on its profession, is seen as one of those small, tight bundles.
Now get this, because this quote really flips the common perception on its head. The source argues that the social group, or caste, didn't just exist for its own sake. Nope. The idea was that the group existed to preserve a specific profession or a function that was needed by the whole of society. The profession itself was the entire purpose.
The discourse then draws this really sharp contrast between two social models. On one hand, it presents the traditional system of hereditary roles, which it says led to contentment and stability because, well, there wasn't all this competition for your job. And it compares that to a modern system of open competition, which it claims leads to widespread jealousy and dissatisfaction. And crucially, look at that last row. It also contrasts internal community governance with external state control.
This idea of internal governance is absolutely key to the whole argument. The text describes a system of community leadership where each group basically managed its own affairs. The authority wasn't legalistic, coming from some far-off government, it was social. The fear of being ostracized by your own community, your own people, was seen as a much more powerful way to keep order than the threat of punishment from some external state authority. It created this really deep sense of belonging and mutual responsibility.
Okay, so if society was made up of all these distinct bundles, what was the glue? What held the entire structure together? What put the unity in this whole diversity concept? The text points to one single, incredibly powerful, unifying force.
And it really boils down to this. This is the crucial point. While people were diverse in their day-to-day work, in their social customs, the discourse argues they were totally unified in their spiritual life and their devotion. Their jobs were different, sure, but their ultimate purpose, their why, was shared.
The Village Temple Festival
is held up as the perfect example of this in action. It was the absolute heart of community life. And during the festival, all those professional and social divisions, they just dissolved. Everyone, it didn't matter what their role was, came together with a single shared identity as children of God. The text paints this incredible picture of a society where everyone, rich and poor from every walk of life, would stand shoulder to shoulder to pull the temple chariot, completely unified in that one act of devotion.
And this brings us to the final argument, the big claim presented in the discourse, that this unique structure, made of all these diverse yet interconnected parts, was the very source of the civilization's longevity and its incredible resilience.
And the thinking here brings us right back to our analogies. A single, solid, monolithic structure, it shatters when it gets hit hard. But a structure that's made of many smaller, resilient, and interconnected parts, well, it can absorb shocks, it can adapt, and it can endure. The text posits that because society was organized in this way, it was able to survive for millennia, weathering all kinds of invasions and external pressures without losing its core identity.
And so, the discourse of David Corral leaves us with a pretty profound question to think about. It really challenges us to wonder whether true social harmony is found by trying to make everyone the same, or could it be found by structuring society in a way that our very differences can serve a common unifying goal? It's definitely something to chew on.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. We are Gyan Kosh, a multilingual channel where we love sharing spiritual wisdom. Right now, we're in English, Hindi, Marathi, Tamil, Gujarati, and Bengali, and we've got more major languages coming very soon. Our whole goal is to bring you the timeless treasures of Sanatan Dharma in a way that's simple, clear, and meaningful. On our channel, you're going to find daily videos on Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Lanatha Sahasranamam, Daivatan Kuro, the voice of God, and stories of saints from Maharashtra and Bengal, and even the divine incarnation of Adi Shankara, all in multiple languages. If you find our content valuable, please subscribe to Gyan Kosh. That way you'll get notified about our daily videos. And don't forget to like, share, and spread this divine knowledge with your family, your friends, and your community. Let's work together to keep the light of Sanatan Dharma shining bright.